Well, Jays Nation, buckle up because we are officially in the home stretch now. Less than a week away from opening day, and the Toronto Blue Jays front office just dropped a bombshell that has the entire fan base scratching their heads and flooding the comment sections with confusion. We're talking about roster moves that nobody saw coming, decisions that are leaving even the most optimistic fans wondering what exactly is going on behind closed doors at Rogers Center. The Blue Jays have been wheeling and dealing, trimming down the roster, making the tough calls, and folks, one name that just got sent packing has everyone asking the same question. What more could this guy have possibly done to crack the opening day roster? This is the kind of drama that makes spring training absolutely electric, the kind of storyline that has real implications for how this team is going to look when they step onto that field against the Oakland Athletics to kick off the season. We've got injury updates, we've got rotation news involving Max Scherzer, we've got bullpen decisions that are giving the front office absolute nightmares, and we've got one player in particular whose demotion to the minors might just be the most puzzling move of the entire spring. So grab your Blue Jays gear, settle in, and let's break down everything that went down over the last 24 hours, because this organization is making moves that will define their entire season before a single pitch is even thrown. The Toronto Blue Jays made their latest round of roster cuts, and the names heading to minor league camp include some familiar faces and one absolute standout who has been turning heads all spring long. Josh Kasevich, along with R.J. Schreck, C.J. Stubbs, and Jorel Panago, has officially been assigned to the minor leagues. Now, on the surface, you might think this is just standard spring training housekeeping, the kind of moves every organization makes when they trim the fat and get down to the final roster. But hold on just a second, because Josh Kasevich is not your typical spring training casualty. This guy has been absolutely dominating throughout camp, putting up numbers that would make any coaching staff take notice, flashing the leather at multiple infield positions, and doing everything short of personally delivering coffee to the front office to prove he deserves a spot on the big league roster. The timing of this move is what makes it so fascinating because just yesterday, literally hours before the announcement, Kasevich was out there crushing the baseball like a man possessed. We're talking about a performance that had fans buzzing, analysts taking notice, and everyone in Jays Nation starting to wonder if this dark horse candidate might actually force his way onto the opening day roster. He ripped a double off the bat at 100 miles per hour, an absolute laser that had exit velocity numbers that would make Vladimir Guerrero Jr. nod in approval. Then he followed that up with a line drive screaming off his bat at 103 miles per hour that unfortunately found a glove and capped it all off with a 97 mile per hour opposite field double that showcased not just raw power, but legitimate bat control and the ability to use the whole field. This wasn't some fluky spring training hot streak where a guy gets lucky for a week. This was sustained excellence, consistent barrel contact, and the kind of offensive production that wins roster battles. But it wasn't just the bat that had people talking. Kasevich has been a defensive Swiss Army knife throughout camp, showing he can handle third base, second base, and even getting some reps at shortstop, although that's probably not his long-term home. The versatility alone should have been enough to get him serious consideration, because in today's game, utility players who can move around the diamond are absolute gold. The Blue Jays have built their recent rosters around positional flexibility, guys who can give you quality at bats and quality defense at multiple spots, and Kasevich was checking every single box. He was making the routine plays, making some highlight reel plays, showing soft hands, good footwork, accurate throws, all the fundamentals that coaches love to see. So when fans woke up this morning and saw his name on the list heading to AAA, the confusion was immediate and intense. Now let's pump the brakes for just a moment and acknowledge that this move does make some logical sense, even if it stings for Kasevich and his supporters. The reality is that last season was absolutely brutal for him from a health perspective. He played just 42 games total because wrist injuries completely derailed his year and turned what should have been a development season into a frustrating cycle of rehab and setbacks. when you're trying to establish yourself as a legitimate prospect, when you're trying to prove you belong at the highest level, injuries are absolutely devastating. They don't just rob you of playing time, they rob you of rhythm, of timing, of the repetitions you need to refine your approach and build the kind of consistency that separates big leaguers from AAA guys. So from the organization's perspective, sending Kasevich down to get a full, healthy season under his belt, to establish a routine, to play every day, and prove his body can hold up over the grind of a full minor league schedule, that makes perfect sense. The Blue Jays still believe he's a big leaguer, they still see a future role for him, but they want him getting at bats and staying healthy, rather than sitting on a big league bench waiting for sporadic opportunities. The optics are rough. When you dominate spring training the way Kasevich dominated spring training, when you pass every test the coaching staff throws at you, when you do literally everything asked of you and more, getting sent down feels like a gut punch. Fans were already starting to dream about what he could bring to the roster, about having another young, hungry player who could inject some energy and production into the lineup. And now, those dreams are on hold, shelved until further notice, waiting for either an injury to open up a spot or for someone else to struggle badly enough that the front office has no choice but to make a change. It's the harsh reality of roster construction in Major League Baseball, where sometimes doing everything right still isn't enough to crack the 26-man roster on opening day. So what does this mean for the Blue Jays' infield picture moving forward? Well, buckle up, because this is where things get really interesting and where the front office's decision-making is going to be scrutinized heavily over the next few weeks. With Kasevich heading to AAA, the utility infield spot appears to be going to Leo Jimenez, a player who brings big league experience and solid defensive chops, but has shown absolutely nothing offensively at the major league level. We're talking about a guy who can handle the glove work, who won't embarrass you in the field, but whose bat has been a black hole whenever he's gotten opportunities in the show. The projection models have him playing shortstop in limited action, backing up Bo Bichette and providing emergency depth if injuries strike. But here's the million-dollar question that every fan is asking right now. Why Leo Jimenez over Josh Kasevich? The experience argument only goes so far when that experience has produced nothing at the plate. The defensive reliability argument makes sense, but Kasevich has shown he can handle multiple positions competently. The veteran presence argument feels hollow when you're talking about a team that just made the World Series and should be prioritizing talent and production over safe, comfortable choices. This feels like the kind of conservative, risk-averse decision that organizational depth charts are built on. The kind of move where you go with the known quantity, even if that known quantity has significant limitations. Leo Jimenez isn't going to lose you games in the field, but he's also not going to win you games with his bat. And in a sport where every run matters, where every at-bat can shift momentum, where depth pieces often become crucial contributors over the course of a long season, passing on a guy who was absolutely raking in favor of a guy who has proven he can't hit big league pitching feels questionable at best. The rest of the infield depth chart offers some comfort at least. You've got Ernie Clement, who can play all over. You've got Will Wagner, who brings positional flexibility. You've got Addison Barger, who can slide around the diamond. And you've got Davis Schneider, who, despite his struggles, is still on the roster and still capable of moving between the outfield and infield, depending on what the team needs. But none of those guys were going head-to-head with Kasevich for a roster spot the way Jimenez was. None of those guys just put up the kind of spring training that Kasevich put up. And that's what makes this so frustrating for fans who wanted to see the organization reward performance and potential rather than defaulting to the safer, less exciting option. Here's the silver lining, though, and it's a significant one. Josh Kasevich is going to be the first call when something goes wrong. When Leo Jimenez hits 150 with no power and forces the front office's hand, when an injury strikes the infield and suddenly the Blue Jays need someone who can actually hit, when the matchups dictate that you need a right-handed bat with some pop off the bench, Kasevich's phone is going to ring. He's going to be playing every day in AAA. He's going to be staying sharp. He's going to be building up that routine and that health track record the organization wants to see. And he's going to be ready to seize his opportunity the moment it presents itself. This isn't the end of his big league dreams. It's just a detour, a frustrating, maddening detour, but a detour nonetheless. The talent is real. The tools are real. The production this spring was real. And all of that is going to manifest at the major league level sooner rather than later. Now let's shift gears and talk about Max Scherzer, because while the Kosovic situation has everyone buzzing, the rotation situation might be even more important to how this season plays out. Mad Max is taking some extra time to ramp up, staying in Florida after spring training ends to make one more start in a minor league game before joining the big league roster. He's targeting 6 innings and around 90 pitches in that final tune-up outing, which should set him up perfectly to slot into the rotation as either the 4th or 5th starter, depending on how the schedule shakes out. This is exactly the kind of cautious, intelligent ramp up you want to see from a veteran pitcher with Scherzer's mileage, a guy who has been through the wars, who knows his body better than anyone, and who understands that being ready for April means absolutely nothing if you break down in June. Manager John Schneider made it crystal clear what the organization's expectations are for Scherzer this season. They want the playoff version of Max, the bulldog competitor who elevates his game when the stakes are highest, the guy who grinds through tough lineups and gives you quality innings when your team needs them most. Schneider even joked that he'd love to see Scherzer throw 250 innings and make 32 starts, knowing full well that's not realistic for a pitcher at this stage of his career, but illustrating just how valuable he is when he's healthy and effective. The key word there is consistent. The Blue Jays don't need Scherzer to be a Cy Young candidate. They don't need him to carry the rotation on his back. They just need him to give them quality starts on a regular basis, to eat innings, to be someone they can pencil into the rotation every 5th day with confidence. There was some interesting insight about how the working relationship with Scherzer has evolved. Last year, the coaching staff was still feeling him out, still learning how he operates, still deferring to his experience and his process, because he's Max Scherzer and he's earned that kind of respect. But this year, there's a different dynamic, a comfort level, where pitching coach Pete Walker and the rest of the staff can push back, can say, hey Max, we're doing it this way, can assert their own philosophies and approaches without worrying about stepping on toes. That kind of collaborative relationship is gold because it means everyone is working toward the same goal. Everyone is comfortable speaking their mind. Everyone is invested in finding the formula that maximizes Scherzer's effectiveness within the framework of what the Blue Jays are trying to accomplish as a pitching staff. The energy he brings every single day is infectious. The way he prepares is a masterclass for younger pitchers, and having that kind of presence in the clubhouse is invaluable even before he throws a single pitch. So how is the rotation actually going to line up for the first few weeks of the season? Well, grab your calendars because this is where things get juicy. The projected schedule has Kevin Gausman getting the ball on opening day against the Athletics, which makes perfect sense given his status as the staff ace and his track record of dominance. Dylan Cease slots in as the number 2 starter, which is exactly where you want him, giving the Blue Jays a legitimate 1-2 punch at the top of the rotation that can match up with anyone in the American League. Then comes Bowden Francis, taking the 3rd spot in the rotation against Oakland, giving the Blue Jays another quality arm to navigate through that opening series. After that, you've got Cody Pond making a start, although there are reports he might also be taking some extra time similar to Scherzer, followed by Max Scherzer himself getting his first start of the regular season. The way the schedule lines up over those first few weeks is absolutely beautiful from a strategic standpoint. The Blue Jays open against the Athletics, who are a scrappy competitive team but not exactly a juggernaut. Then they face the Colorado Rockies, who are rebuilding and projected to be one of the worst teams in baseball. After that, it's the Chicago White Sox, who are in full tank mode and might challenge the Rockies for the title of worst team in the majors. And then finally, the schedule gets serious when the Los Angeles Dodgers come to town, and that's when you see Gausman, Cease, and Scherzer lined up to face the best team in baseball, the Blue Jays' 3 best arms against the Dodgers' Murderers Row lineup. That's smart roster management. That's playing the matchups. That's setting your team up to bank some wins early against inferior competition while saving your heavy artillery for when you really need it. The early schedule is legitimately a gift. The Athletics have some dangerous hitters, but their roster has significant holes. The Rockies away from Coors Field are absolutely toothless offensively, and their pitching staff is a disaster. The White Sox are actively trying to lose games as part of their rebuild. If the Blue Jays can't take care of business against that stretch of opponents, if they can't build some momentum and stack some wins early, then there are going to be serious questions about what kind of team they actually are. This is the kind of schedule where you should be going 7-2 or 8-1, where you should be padding your record and building confidence before the real gauntlet of the season kicks in. There's been some debate about whether Bowden Francis should start against the Athletics or the Rockies, some discussion about maximizing matchups based on handedness and lineup construction. The Athletics do have a legitimately good lineup with some serious left-handed power, so the argument for saving Francis for Colorado makes some sense. But at the end of the day, when you're facing teams of this caliber, the specific matchups matter less than just executing and taking care of business. The Blue Jays have the better roster, they have the better rotation, they have the better lineup, and they need to go out and prove it on the field. Luis Castillo getting the nod to start opening day was confirmed, giving the Blue Jays clarity on their ace and their rotation structure moving forward. A recent spring training lineup against the Yankees gave us a preview of what opening day might look like, with George Springer leading off, Dalton Varsho hitting second, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the 3-hole, Addison Barger 4th, Alejandro Kirk 5th, Davis Schneider 6th, Will Wagner 7th, Ernie Clement 8th, and Leo Jimenez 9th. That's probably going to be pretty close to what we see, although there might be some shuffling between Varsho and Barger depending on matchups and how guys are swinging the bat. The lineup has some serious thunder in the middle, some speed and on-base ability at the top, and enough versatility throughout that they can mix and match based on who's on the mound. The bullpen situation remains a work in progress, and that's probably the biggest question mark surrounding this roster right now. The Blue Jays have some tough decisions to make about who makes the cut, who gets optioned, who might get designated for assignment, and how they want to construct that relief corps for opening day. Those decisions are going to have ripple effects throughout the season because bullpen depth is everything in modern baseball. You need multiple reliable arms, you need guys who can get both righties and lefties out, you need length guys who can eat innings, you need high leverage guys who can protect leads, and you need enough depth that when injuries inevitably strike, you're not scrambling to find warm bodies. The front office is reportedly still wrestling with some tough calls in that area, and we should have clarity over the next few days as the final cuts get made. So where does all of this leave us as we barrel toward opening day? The Josh Kasevich decision is going to be second-guessed if Leo Jimenez struggles, and frankly, it's being second-guessed already by a fan base that wanted to see the hot hand rewarded. The rotation is shaping up nicely with Gausman and Cease at the top, Scherzer and Pond rounding things out, and Francis providing quality depth. The schedule is as favorable as you could possibly hope for to start the season, giving the Blue Jays a golden opportunity to build momentum and stack wins. The lineup has legitimate firepower and enough versatility to create favorable matchups. And the bullpen remains the big wild card, the area where things could go really right or really wrong, depending on how those final roster decisions play out. This team just made the World Series. This organization has championship expectations. The roster is loaded with talent. The front office has made aggressive moves to improve, and the fan base is hungry for more success after getting a taste of October baseball. But spring training decisions like the Kasevich demotion are going to be magnified if things go wrong, if the depth gets tested, if the safe conservative choices backfire. Josh Kasevich is going to be in AAA, staying ready, getting his at-bats, proving his health, and waiting for his opportunity. When that call comes, and it will come, he's going to be ready to make an impact and show the Blue Jays what they were missing all along. Baseball is almost here, Jays Nation. Less than a week until meaningful games, until the Athletics come to town, until Kevin Gausman toes the rubber and starts this journey toward what everyone hopes is another deep playoff run. The roster is taking shape, the decisions are being made, and very soon we'll find out if the front office got it right or if they left talent on the table that could have made a difference. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the Kasevich move. whether you agree with keeping Leo Jimenez over the hot hand and what your expectations are for this rotation as we head into the season. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button because we're going to be bringing you daily Blue Jays content all season long, covering every move, every game, every storyline that matters to this team. Smash that like button, drop a comment with your predictions for opening day, and let's get ready for Blue Jays baseball because it's finally almost here.